work night security at a hospital that's too quiet for how big it is. The building sprawls over 5 floors, 2 underground, 3 above. At least half of it is unused after dark. There's the ER, always active, the ICU and maternity ward on the 3rd floor, and a few surgical suites they keep prepped for emergencies. But the rest? Mostly dark hallways and empty rooms. My shift runs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 4 nights a week. I don't mind it. Fewer people to deal with, and the pay is decent. I don't even have a partner. Just me, my radio, and a wall of monitors in a little room near the loading dock. Most of the job is routine. Check perimeter doors, scan the badge at checkpoints, keep an eye out for movement on the cameras. Once in a while, I have to escort a confused patient who's wandered too far from their room, or settle a loud argument in the ER waiting room. But usually, it's quiet. Too quiet some nights. Hospitals have a kind of memory, I think. You can feel it in the walls, in the paint that never fully covers the old stains, in the soft creak of old linoleum under your boots. It's in the silence between the sounds, the way the hum of the vending machines fills a space that should be buzzing with life but isn't. There's one hallway in particular that always gives me pause. 3rd floor, West Wing. It used to be the psych unit back in the 90s, before they moved everything to the new facility across town. Now it's technically decommissioned. No patients, no staff. The lights barely work, but the cameras are still online, and I'm still expected to check it once per shift. We call it Ward C. It's never listed that way in any official paperwork, just 3rd floor west. But every long-term employee I've met calls it that. They say it like it means something. The first few weeks I worked here, I didn't think much of it. It was just another part of the job. But then I started noticing things. Little things. For one, the badge scanner outside Ward C malfunctions more than any other reader in the building. Sometimes it doesn't scan. Sometimes it buzzes, then resets itself. Once it locked me out completely, even though my credentials were current. Then there's the camera feed. Each night, around 1 a.m., the feed for Corridor C1 glitches for just a second. A tiny flicker, barely visible unless you're staring straight at it. I assumed it was a wiring issue, but engineering's looked at it twice. Nothing wrong, they said. Nothing to fix. It's not just the tech. There's a feeling you get when you walk down that hallway. I can't explain it clearly. The air is heavier. The temperature drops a degree or 2. Not freezing, just enough that you notice. It's not even that it's scary, exactly. It's more like the air is waiting for something. I try to keep my rounds tight and efficient. I start at the lower levels, mechanical rooms, storage, the morgue, then work my way up. I leave Ward C for last, partly because it's furthest from the office, mostly because I don't like lingering there. Last night started like any other. I clocked in at 9:52, checked in with dispatch, grabbed a stale cinnamon muffin from the vending machine, and ran through the evening checklist. All clear. Quiet night in the ER, no transfers scheduled. A maintenance guy was doing some lighting work in the east stairwell, but otherwise, the place was dead. I made my first round at 10:30. Loading dock, side exits, utility hallway, all clear. Cameras were steady. The new nurse on ICU smiled and waved as I passed. First time I'd seen her. Around 11:45, I took my second round, this time including the lower levels. The morgue always gives me the creeps, but it was routine. Lights on, room empty, doors secure. I scanned my badge, signed the log, and moved on. At 12:17 a.m., I returned to the office and sank into my chair. The monitor showed what they always did. Flickering gray-blue corridors, still and sterile. Camera 9 showed Ward C, Corridor 1. The same frame I'd seen hundreds of times. But something felt different. I leaned forward. The camera was steady, no flicker yet. But I noticed something on the floor, something small, near room 312. I squinted. Could have been anything. A mop head, a trash bag. But I didn't remember seeing it earlier. I pulled up the archived footage and rewound to my earlier rounds. In the 10:30 feed, nothing on the floor. Clean and clear. In the 12 o'clock feed, there it was. It hadn't been there before. No one had access to that wing. No one should have been able to leave anything there. I watched the footage again, slower this time. At exactly 12:04 a.m., the screen glitched for a single frame. And when it returned, the object was there. No movement, no sign of how it appeared, just there. My mind reached for explanations. Maybe the camera glitched and layered in a frame from a previous night. Maybe someone from maintenance had gotten confused and left equipment in the wrong wing. Maybe I was tired. Still, I logged it. Camera 9 anomaly. Object appeared in hallway without visible source. I didn't plan on checking it in person. Not yet. I told myself I'd wait for the 1 a.m. round. That's when things usually get interesting. By 12:50 a.m., I was back in the hallway, flashlight in hand, moving toward the elevator. I didn't have to check Ward C. No alarms had gone off, and technically, the footage I'd seen could be explained away. But something gnawed at me. That object on the floor, the way it had just appeared, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important. When I stepped into the elevator, the doors hesitated. They always do on the way to the 3rd floor. You press the button, and there's a long pause, just enough to wonder if it's going to move at all. And then it jolts to life with a soft clunk, like it had to think about it first. The ride up felt longer than usual. When the doors slid open, I was greeted by a heavy silence. Ward C always had a different kind of quiet, the sort that made your ears ring, like the building itself was holding its breath. The overhead fluorescents were dimmer here, flickering every few seconds. The emergency lights in the corners gave everything a dull orange glow, like an old photograph soaked in nicotine. I walked past room 301, then 303, scanning slowly. Each door had a small viewing window, most too fogged to see through. The paint on the walls peeled in long, curled strips. There was water damage near the ceiling, and a line of rust where something had once leaked down to the baseboard. And then I saw it. Just ahead, in front of room 312, something small on the floor. I approached slowly. The object was a hospital ID badge, face down. The lanyard coiled beside it like it had been dropped. I crouched and flipped it over. The badge was faded, worn at the edges. The name was barely legible. Thorn, E.L. The photo was black and white, and the uniform didn't match anything our staff wear today. Expiration date, March 2002. I frowned. That badge had no business being here. Nobody had worked in this wing in over 2 decades. And even if someone had left it behind, why now? Why at night? I scanned the area. No signs of movement. No fresh footprints in the dust. I stood and reached for my radio. This is Security 1. Found old hospital ID in Ward C, room 312. Name reads Thorn, E.L. No current match in system. Requesting database lookup. There was a long pause, then a burst of static. Copy that. Checking records now. I clipped the badge to my belt and turned back toward the camera mounted in the corner. Camera 9. The one that had caught the object appearing. Its red light was off. I waved my hand slowly in front of it. Nothing. Camera 9 appears offline, I said aloud, mostly to myself. That's when I noticed something strange. The door to room 312, where the badge had been found, was slightly ajar. Not open, exactly. Just not fully closed. I'd walked past it earlier, and I was sure it had been shut tight. Most of these old doors are stuck from years of humidity and neglect. They don't just open on their own. I stepped closer. The hallway felt colder now. Maybe a draft, maybe just nerves. I gently pushed the door open a few inches. It creaked like a haunted house cliché, and I winced. The room inside was dark, but my flashlight swept across a few familiar shapes. An empty bed frame, the remnants of a ceiling tile collapse, an old overbed tray rusted into position. Nothing unusual. I started to close the door again. Then something moved, a soft shuffle, like fabric against fabric, coming from the far corner of the room, just outside the beam of my light. I froze. "Security," I said. "If someone's in there, I need you to identify yourself." Silence. I stepped 1 foot into the room and raised the flashlight. The beam landed on a wall, faded wallpaper, cracked at the seams, a rusted call button. Nothing else. But there was a shape now, just barely visible in my peripheral vision. Not solid, more like the suggestion of something. I blinked. It was gone. "Too much coffee," I muttered, trying to calm myself. I stepped back into the hallway and shut the door behind me. The latch clicked softly. I stood there for a few moments, listening. Nothing. Then the radio buzzed. "Security 1 dispatch." We pulled the record. "Evelyn L. Thorne, psychiatric nurse. Employed 1994 to 2002. Terminated following incident in Ward C." I stared at the badge clipped to my belt. "Incident?" I asked. "What kind of incident?" Another pause, longer this time. "We don't have the file. Looks like it was sealed." Of course it was. "Anything else?" I asked. Static. Then, she died. On site. Heart attack, supposedly. Supposedly. I made my way back down the hallway, feeling the weight of the badge on my hip. Back in the elevator, the doors didn't close right away. They stayed open for 3 full seconds longer than normal. Long enough for me to glance back down the hallway one last time. And that's when I saw it. At the far end of the corridor, standing just outside the camera's reach, was a figure. Too far to make out details. Still, unmoving. Watching. Then the doors closed. By the time I got back to the security office, it was just past 1:30 a.m. I sat down hard in the chair, letting the familiar buzz of monitors and quiet hum of the fridge settle me. The badge from room 312 sat on the desk. Evelyn Thorne, a psychiatric nurse who died on site, whose badge had appeared in front of a sealed room, whose personnel file had been sealed. I stared at the monitor for camera 9 again. Still down. Just a dead black screen. But the red indicator light had returned, glowing faintly in the corner, like an eye watching back. The rest of the screens looked normal. Sterile hallways, empty nurses' stations, quiet stairwells. But something still felt off. Then the intercom clicked on. It was faint, just a crackle of static at first. Then a sharp pop as the microphone activated. That alone was weird. I'm the only one who can access the security broadcast system at night. The speaker hissed once more. Then a voice. Software feminine. Tired. Room 309. That was all. Just 2 words. Room 309. The same room that had triggered the camera glitch earlier. The same one that hasn't been used in over 20 years. I checked the control board. None of the intercom channels were active. The broadcast light wasn't on. But I'd heard it, clear as day. "Security 1 to dispatch," I said into my radio. Intercom just activated itself. Female voice said, "Room 309. Please confirm if anyone's accessing internal comms." "Negative," dispatch replied. "No log of intercom activity." "Copy," I said quietly. I pulled up the archived intercom log myself. Nothing listed between midnight and now, which was impossible. My hands were starting to shake. This wasn't just flickering cameras or a misplaced object anymore. Something was happening. something that didn't care about our systems, or schedules, or explanations. Still, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore it, log it as a glitch, finish my rounds, and go home. But I knew if I did that, I'd lie awake all morning, wondering what I might have missed. So I got up, grabbed my flashlight, took a breath, and headed back to the 3rd floor. The elevator was silent this time, not even the usual groan of gears, just a smooth, weightless drift up to the 3rd floor. When the doors opened, the air felt heavier again, like walking into a room that had been sealed too long. Stale. Still. I made my way back to Ward C. The hallway was darker now. One of the overhead lights had burned out, leaving a gap in the usual flicker cycle. The emergency lights cast long shadows across the floor. Room 309 was just ahead. Its door was closed. I tried the handle. Locked. As it should be. I stood there for a while, listening. Nothing. Then, from behind me, down the hall, a door creaked open. Slow. Deliberate. I turned. Room 303. The door had been closed earlier. Now it was open a few inches, just wide enough to show total darkness beyond. I raised my flashlight and stepped toward it. The hallway felt longer than before, stretched somehow, as though the air had thickened. I reached the door and gently pushed it open. The flashlight beam cut into the dark room. Bed frame, broken cabinet, chair lying on its side. Then the beam caught something on the wall. A message, written in faint marker, or maybe old dried blood. It had faded to a rusty brown. In uneven, shaky handwriting, 3 words. He's still here. I blinked. The light flickered. When it returned, the writing was gone. Just stained wallpaper and flaking paint. I stepped back out into the hall, heart pounding. I radioed dispatch again. Ward C is showing signs of trespass. Room 303 open. No visible intruder. Requesting review of 3rd floor access logs for the last 72 hours. Copy, dispatch replied. Stand by. As I waited, I glanced back toward room 309, still locked. But the camera 9, suddenly blinked back to life on my belt-mounted monitor. The feed was shaky, out of focus. And then, in the middle of the hallway, I saw her. A woman. Shoulder-length hair, wearing an outdated nurse's uniform, pale skin, standing completely still, facing away from the camera. The overlay labeled it, Live Feed, Corridor C1. She didn't move. I watched for 10 full seconds. Then the screen glitched again. When it came back, the hallway was empty. Dispatch, I said slowly. Do you have camera access on Corridor C1 right now? Negative. That feed's been offline all night. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. I left the hallway without finishing the sweep. Back in the elevator, I tried to calm myself. But as the door slid shut, I saw the light above room 309 flicker once, then go out completely. When I returned to the office, everything was humming, too smoothly. All the cameras were live again. Even camera 9, the one that had been glitching all night, now showed a perfectly clear shot of Corridor C1. The hallway looked undisturbed, but I knew better. The badge was still on the desk. Evelyn L. Thorne, psychiatric nurse. I reached for the phone and dialed extension 105, records. After 4 rings, someone picked up. Records. This is security. I need a full personnel file on Evelyn Thorne. Can you override sealed entries? There was a pause. We're not supposed to access sealed files. This one might involve a breach, or worse. I've got camera activity and an old badge that shouldn't exist. A longer pause. Give me 10. I hung up and leaned back, rubbing my eyes. I hadn't eaten. My coffee was cold. I felt lightheaded, like I'd stepped just slightly out of sync with everything. Then, at exactly 2:04 a.m., the alarms went off. Not all of them. Just one. An old one. The panel showed a triggered fire sensor in ward, room 309. Impossible. There's no power to that sensor. It was disconnected years ago. I stared at the panel. The red light blinked steadily. I silenced the alarm and pulled up camera 9. Room 309's door was still shut. But just outside it, something was different. The floor. It was wet. A dark, spreading puddle, like something had leaked out from under the door. I leaned forward. The puddle was moving, not dripping, sliding, as though it were following the light. I switched to thermal overlay. There it was. A faint heat signature. Not human, not mechanical, just warm and spreading. I froze. Then my radio crackled. "Security 1, this is dispatch. We just got a maintenance call from a room that's not in service. Extension 7229. That extension triggered something in my memory. I pulled up the internal directory. 7229. Listed as West Isolation, 3rd floor. Room 309. Dispatch, I said slowly. Who made the call? Unknown, they replied. Auto-logged. 10 seconds of static. Timestamp. 2:04 a.m. I checked the phone next to me. Its screen was flashing. Missed call. Room 309. My blood ran cold. That line wasn't even supposed to be active. I picked up the receiver. Listened. Nothing. Then, a click, followed by a whisper. He never left. I dropped the phone. It hit the desk with a dull clatter, but the whisper continued, leaking from the speaker, even with the handset down. He never left. He never left. He never... I yanked the cord from the jack. The sound stopped. Silence returned. I needed to see the room. I don't know why. Some twisted sense of duty, maybe. Or maybe it was too late to walk away. I took the stairs this time. The hallway leading to Ward C felt narrower than before. The walls closer, as though the building was pressing inward, guiding me towards something. As I approached room 309, the emergency lights above flickered, then cut out entirely. Pitch dark. My flashlight cast a narrow beam ahead. The puddle on the floor was still there. Wider now. Thick. Black. Not water. Too viscous. Too reflective. I stepped around it. The door to 309 was ajar. Not wide, just enough to show the silver edge of the bed rail inside. I pushed the door open slowly. The hinges didn't creak this time. They breathed. A long, slow exhale. The room was dark. My flashlight passed across a collapsed ceiling tile, a broken IV stand, and a medical chart still hanging on the wall. I stepped inside, and the door closed behind me. Hard. I spun, grabbing the handle. Locked. I twisted harder. Nothing. I was in. The beam of my flashlight landed on something at the foot of the bed. A chair. Someone was sitting in it, not moving. I froze. Raised the light slowly. Pale hands, wrinkled, folded neatly in a lap. A nurse's uniform, faded blue. Badge clipped to the collar. The face was in shadow. Then, the eyes opened. White. Glazed. Dead. But they looked directly at me. The mouth moved. No sound. Then from behind me, another whisper. He's behind you. I turned. Nothing. When I looked back at the chair, it was empty. I don't remember unlocking the door. Don't remember how I got back to the stairwell. But somehow, I was back in the hallway, my heart thudding like it was trying to escape my chest. The emergency lights were back on. Room 309's door was closed again, and clean. No puddle. No trace. Like nothing had happened. Except the flashlight in my hand. It wasn't mine. My flashlight has a taped handle and a scratch near the lens. This one was smooth, untouched. Engraved on the side, property of E.L. Thorne. When I got back to the office, something was off. The lights were on, the monitors were lit. My chair was still spinning slightly, like I'd just gotten up. But I'd been gone almost 30 minutes. I checked the system clock, 2:11 a.m., exactly the same time I'd left. No error message, no glitch. The logs showed continuous operation, but time hadn't moved. I sat down, heart still pounding, and placed the flashlight, Thorne's flashlight, gently on the desk beside the old ID badge. Then I noticed something else. The badge was gone. In its place was a folded patient bracelet. My name was on it. Date of admission, blank room, 309. I stared at it for a long time. Then the monitors began flickering, all at once. Camera 2, distorted. Camera 4, static, then black. Camera 7 showed the morgue hallway, empty, but the gurney moved 2 inches by itself. Camera 9, Ward C, began cycling through the feed on a loop, but the footage was wrong. It showed me. Standing in the hallway, flashlight in hand, back turned to the camera. Then it looped again. Me, slightly closer. Same pose. Again, me, now in front of the camera, facing it. But I hadn't left the room. I tapped the keyboard, tried to close the feed. Nothing responded. Then the intercom crackled. Every speaker at once. This time, the voice wasn't whispering. It was calm. Clear. "You're not supposed to be here." It wasn't angry. It sounded disappointed. Then the power died. All at once, the monitors, the lights, the hum of the air vents, gone. Total darkness. I sat there, frozen. The only sound, my own breath in the stale air. Then, a second sound. Footsteps. In the hallway outside. Software barefoot. They stopped outside the security room. Then, a knock. 1, 2, 3. I reached for the flashlight, my original one, the scratched handle, and flicked it on. The beam hit the door just as it slowly creaked open. But there was no one there. Just an empty hallway. I stepped out. Everything was different now. The corridor seemed longer than before. The ceiling stretched too high. The lights dimmed to a copper glow. The walls were too smooth, too clean, as if freshly built. New, but wrong. There were no sounds, not even my own footsteps. I turned left. Then, right. I walked for what felt like 10 minutes, but every corridor led me back to the same junction. 4 identical halls, branching like a cross. In the center was a gurney, and on it, a patient chart. I picked it up. Patient. Evelyn L. Thorne, status. Unresolved notes. Transfer to observation. Then below that, second subject identified. My name. Status. Pending. I dropped the clipboard. The walls began to pulse. Faintly, like they were breathing. The lights flickered again. From far away, I heard a sound like metal scraping against tile. Slow. Heavy. Then, a voice. Not in my head. Not on the intercom. Right behind me. "You saw it." I turned. No one there. But the wall in front of me had changed. Room 309's door was there now. Just the door. No hallway, no frame. Just the door, standing alone in the void-like dark. Its handle turned. The door swung open, revealing not a room, but a mirror. A perfect, floor-length mirror. And in it, me, standing still, not blinking. The reflection smiled. I did not. It raised its hand. I did not. Then it spoke, in my voice. He never left. The mirror shattered, and behind it was the corridor again. But not the corridor I remembered. It was clean. Literature active. Nurses walked past. A gurney rolled by. A doctor scribbled on a chart. But none of them saw me. I was standing in the middle of Ward C. In the past, everything had reset. I reached for my radio. It was gone. So was the flashlight. So was my badge. I turned and saw a nurse standing at room 309's door. She turned to me. It was Evelyn Thorne. She smiled gently. "I was just doing my rounds," she said. I couldn't speak. "You'll get used to it," she added. Then she stepped through the door and vanished. I don't remember anything after that. I woke up at 5:58 a.m., sitting at my desk. The power was on. The monitors were normal. The badge was gone. I checked the logs. No alarms. No intercom activity. No calls. No footage saved past midnight. Like the night had never happened. But it did. I checked room 309 on my final round. The door was welded shut. Has been for 20 years. But etched into the metal now, just above the handle, faint, like it had been scratched by fingernails, was a name. Mine. And below that, he never left.